welcome to the Daily Shame. If you're new here for some reason, then you don't know me and Nick G, which is like a real shame because you're about to. We have 2,000 followers. I like to say that's amazing. 200,000. Thanks for being here. Taylor Swift numbers, really. But no, I just think that we're in this moment where it's like, I think you, like me, we listen to like smart punditry and analysts all day long, and people, and this is like one of the reasons that I was drawn to your work in the first place, is your byline or tagline or motto or something is like, if I'm a guy on the couch and I can figure this out, like, why can't, yes. And this is what, like, I feel like the conversation we need to be having is about first of all, it's not even about politics, right? Like my biggest thing about like shame on AOC for a million reasons, but like shame on Taylor Swift for engaging in the idea that it's political to endorse democracy, right? Like that political is when you have two sides of an argument and you're talking out like the differences and you want to fine tune little bits. But no, we don't have time for that. We need to get everybody out who's not on the side of actual functional democracy, because the people who aren't are on the side of actual fascism. And it's not like, and I think now the problem is, there is a really long history in this country, back to the Constitution, if you will. Fuck these textual originalists, but like, I won't even go down there. But we have an inherent structure of whataboutism that is like, well, we don't want to do anything to upset the racist. And it's like, now that this has come full circle, let's just say it's okay to upset the racists, right? Like, let's just say, and I think, and this is what I was thinking about today that managed to make me ashamed for both AOC and Taylor Swift, is like, somebody, and I apologize to the Substackers who I'm not citing by name today. One is intentional, because I don't want to throw anyone under the bus when I criticize their points if they can be broadened.
I do that too.
And this one, I liked, somebody said this morning, and I was like, thank you. She pointed out that she was like, here's the thing, like Taylor Swift's fans are sort of, engaging with this feud between the White House and herself as though it's an issue of like a narcissistic attack between celebrities, and that's the real issue, when the actual problem. Oop, are you still here?
Oh, I am right here. Where are you?
All right. Oh no, this is good. You know what? I have like an HDMI problem, so if I can't see you but I can hear you, that's probably better, because I don't be funny looking at you.
You want me to beatbox while you talk so you know I'm here?
No, that's fine. Thanks. I'll just be like, Nick, are you there? I'll start trying to like sing over the beatboxing. It won't work. But no, I the creator who said this, I thought like it was so important. She was like, fans are engaging as though this is a celebrity feud. One side is a celebrity and the other side is fascism. I was like, this is what we need,
right.
It's not, she was like, it's not just this guy's a narcissist and he can't take it. This is the leader of the free world doing fascism. And a friend and I had a whole conversation this morning about how like it's a fucking choice to endorse Kamala, but then lean into all of your NFL stuff and your like white woman transformative journey.
Sure.
And I'm saying this because I am trying not to like thrust Swifties to the front of this, but the point that I take from that note is that these things have like, entertainers have impact in culture. That is their realm. And we're in a moment where we need to be real about what the culture of democracy is, because culture is how we can enforce the actions of people around us, hence the daily shame. Like, we do need to develop the power of culture, and we need to develop the power of culture to make it not okay to, like, elect your own attorney to the Department of Justice, right? We need
Right,
to
right.
we need
Your
to use
personal attorney. Right, right.
right. We need to use the power of culture. Like, shame is why I have a full face of makeup when I'm on a live that's unpaid at 7:30 at night. And my and my outfit is color coordinated. That's shame, right? Like, that's a part of culture that I grew up with, where I understand that, like, this shit needs to match or I can't leave the house, and that is ingrained because that's how culture works. And I think that the danger that is inherent in this idea that, and this is why I'm livid about this particular point, because AOC was, the clip you sent me. It's like, AOC disowns woke. Like, excuse me, what does, like, first of all, what does that mean? And
Right, right.
second, this idea that it is somehow a movement that is politicized, and that there are, like, political points that are okay when you're talking about human rights, and then political points that are not okay when you're talking about human rights, is it's maddening, because it's an insidious part of upholding all of the systems of violence that allow the perpetual whataboutism, which again keeps us in an apartheid state, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you caught this, someone else I'm not going to name, that clip that you sent also, where they were talking about AOC. One of the hosts was like, well, people really were responding to police brutality because it's a really visceral feeling when you see that, and it's really shocking, and there's a feeling behind it.
Like in your
There's a
gut.
feeling behind any time somebody doesn't have a human right, full stop. And we need to, like, I think that, again, one of the reasons I talk about words being important, but also one of the reasons that I think it's okay to communicate in, like, small, simple pieces, is I want everyone right now to be connecting up and down the ladder, right, of all of these systems that we live in, because I think that the power that we have, again, within culture, as citizens, as participants taking up space within our country, that power is to develop a culture where we
Yes.
say, I have an equal feeling to my rights being taken away as to somebody else's, and you want that feeling, but also, like, the problem, I mean, it should not be controversial to say that.
At all.
That, I mean, it's just, it's so, I feel like it's so damaging, and I have thoughts about that, but I wanted to start because I know that you're the one to call on this, and I'm real thrilled to be able to do this. Nick, would you please share with our audience what a real definition of the word woke is?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
whole woke is abolition based. I mean, it
Mhm.
comes from, and I've actually written pieces where it starts citing musicians that have used it in their songs and stuff like that. But anything
Mhm.
that comes out in conversation that breaks barriers usually comes from an internal conversation, and that's what's happening.
Mhm.
The way that America was structured, even from its inception, we kick out the U.S. Constitution. It was a big middle finger to England, and we were saying, "Hey, we are so awesome, all this freedom, all this greatness.
Mhm.
You don't have that over there. We do. We wrote it down, and then they made a whole bunch of laws that made it okay to treat human beings as subhuman.
Right.
And so the whole concept of staying woke is you are always watching. I bring everything to wrestling because, like I say, being a lifelong wrestling fan is what has given me this perspective on literally everything.
Yeah.
But I'm always watching for the swerve. And
Mhm.
even though, no, I am not connecting professional wrestling to blackness in a sense, but I'm using this in a more commercial explanation. that
Sure.
there's always a swerve. Your tag team partner is going to kick you through a barbershop window, then break up your tag team so they can go solo, that kind of stuff. Why? Because they made a deal with the corporation, with the people in charge, with the powers that be.
Yeah.
And so in that sense, that's how, for example, Malcolm X was shot, because he was shot with people who were in and not in. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's what wokeness is, staying woke. But why do I see that? Because I grew up in the 90s. So I grew up with all the Bill Cosby. I grew up with all the Mario Van Peebles. I grew up with all the Spike Lee. So Black culture, from a Black perspective, we had like the comedy crossovers and stuff like that, and through music, lots of the music was not aimed at this guy, but Vanilla Ice kind of brought him over here. So I ended up getting into like Tribe Called Quest and all that other stuff. But I'm listening to conversations, you know what I mean, about a society that is not something that I look around, local Glens Falls, New York, and see. And so that is what wokeness is: staying aware of the society around you that's built to keep you oppressed.
Right. Thank you. And I'm mentioning that, and I wanted to include it because it makes me so angry that the left even engages, right? Like I want to live in a world where AOC says, first of all, I'm not going to use a Fox framing of an appropriated AAVE term. Get fucked, right? Like number one, I'm so sick of the capitulation to the language and characterization. Woke is derogatory on the right because they want to use one. There's already a characterization by white people, thanks to the internet, that it means something different than the word actually means, right? Like you and I understand, because like you said, we're old enough to have been exposed to understand the evolution, that there's an etymology that, again, well, I mean, to me, one of the most insidious things that the right has done is co-opt all of these ideas of how civil rights were won and use those same grassroots tactics of organizing to feed to a base that then goes and fights for a racist status quo, right? Like that is
let's take a quick split. And we're talking about politics, but let's recognize Republican Party as it is. They aren't a political party. And actually, as I'm saying that, political parties themselves aren't exactly like government. It's actually part of the Jim Crow South, where private clubs, because now it's illegal for the government to go and be like, okay, you can't, you can own people. And so these private clubs were deciding this is their candidate, and they put it behind it. And, begot. Here we are in 2026, where the people from these private clubs are acting as our news people, giving us their projection. Like I was listening to the Crooked Dudes today, and I'm thinking, you guys should have, we worked for the DNC, we worked for Obama. This is why our message sounds like this, because it makes us money.
Right.
That should be all over that, all over the Midas guys, all over that. But we turned into politics, but in reality, it's about where our intellectual property comes from and how we share it with everybody else.
Can you expand on that? I think I'm missing the connection of intellectual property back to wokeness. As for again, sorry, just to everybody, all 12,000 followers who are here. Thank you, audience.
So
but there's frame wokeness as a movement, and people engaging with that is the thesis that we're shaming because it's stupid. So sorry.
We're watching basic TV. In my head, I have a caricature of Full House, where it's like when you're watching Danny Tanner wear his baggier clothes as the seasons progress, you're watching last season's street stuff. You know what I mean? So it's again to the whitewashing. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go off on that.
No, please, I absolutely want this. I'm like, this is the conversation I want to unpack because it's so important, I think.
The quintessential argument
Yeah.
of wokeness, of even and me. I get offended if somebody calls me a liberal, and it's like you see me kind of stink my nose up when I say liberal because that's the way
Yeah.
it's been aimed at me. So I don't really identify. I kind of identify as a conservative, if that makes any sense in the literal word conservative. You know what I
Sure.
mean? I just want to mind my business. I want my neighbor Neil to mind his business. I want the guy
Right.
across the street to mind his
Right.
business. You know what I mean?
If you don't want a gay marriage, you won't get one. Yeah.
It has nothing to do with me, but that's what they did. They took a word that they kind of got a concept of. You know what I mean? Like woke, like well, we'll just stick with woke. And they turned it into being okay to be gay, okay to have pink hair and rally about stuff and all that. And there really isn't, it's just misappropriation. All of it's misappropriation. It's exactly why Robbie Van Winkle owes America an apology for being the vessel for which corporate America turned rap music on to white people. You know what I mean? Robbie Van Winkle being Vanilla Ice. And they're selling stuff they don't understand. Vanilla Ice is saying word to your mother, which is a term that comes from actual culture inside a community that has nothing to do with him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the more I learn about Florida, the cooler black people were there. That's where, you hear Bugs Bunny. He'll go, what a maroon. The Maroons were black folks that liberated themselves. So when you say the word maroon, you better put some pride on it because that's not an idiot. You know what I mean? That's a marketed concept that was brought forward from that time period because these people were strong enough to live their own lives. They ended up becoming part of the Black Seminoles.
Well, and to that point, I love that you have such expansive history on that because I will say this is one of those things that I feel like is, I don't even know how regional it is, but I have never heard, like, I watched some Bugs Bunny growing up, right? But like, I'm not familiar off the top of my head with that, with that word. Like, I'm sure I've seen, I've seen it said, but I have
Nimrod from the Bible is another one. Nimrod was a king who lost his mind. And so when he's referring to King Nimrod, this guy's a Nimrod. What a maroon. Actually, I think they usually go in parallel.
Well, but that's what's so interesting, right? Is like you're talking about, an oppressive majority coming up with an appropriated or maybe colonizer term, right?
Very.
Depending on the context, right? That you're, and like even a maroon, those people I'm sure had their own identity names, and that's an external, like that's an imposed label. And I thought that's what, like, to me, that's what was so honestly was kind of shocking to see AOC talking about Hong today in a way that suggested she was saying, I mean, she even said, I wrote it down because I was like floored. She said, this isn't rhetoric we would use today. And then she talks about tying BLM to 2020. She talks about this pressurized sense of everybody being at home, which another daily shame, but an every daily shame for me is fuck anyone white. You should be ashamed of yourself if you didn't read some book in 2020 to make something like your commute went away. You had the same 40 hours that I did. Inconceivable to me that what we got was Pelosi in, but I just, I know, I'm like, do I even want to talk about the Kenty Claus? I'm like, that's not the point. But the point is that it's wild to me that only 6 years later you hear AOC going, well, times are different and no, you're different. You've decided that you're going to soften a commitment. And what pisses me off is, and this is, I've made personal commitments to myself since 2020 to never be sold out by politicians ever again, because at the end of the day, I'm somebody who, if I do nothing else, when I think it's important, which I've thought, for most of my adult life, admittedly, when I had friends who were Obama staffers, I was like, they've got it. But now, ever since people who I know, literally know, left the White House, I've been like, you know what? I'll phone bank for the general, because I never want to be in a situation, and certainly like as of 2015, I have been very aware that we're barreling towards this moment right now. And I've never wanted to be somebody who is like, oh, I wish I had done something, right? So
Yes.
I phone bank in general elections, bare minimum. If I don't do anything else, if I do no political participation, that has not happened in like decades. But if I do no political participation all year, right? And I absolutely am floored by how, frankly, just I always want to say rapey, because it's just like it's this way that the Democratic Party assumes that they can take voter, like electorate groups of color in particular,
Yes.
for granted,
Yes.
but also all of the queer groups, all of anyone, all of the Muslims who, I'm sorry, I just don't think the Islamophobia is going to get us where we need to go.
It's
And
gross.
it's disgusting, and it's so normalized. And I am
Yes.
just, I'm amazed by how, but you see that circle close. It's like, oh well, racism's just political. No, it's not. Racism is
It's being
antithetical.
taught. It's being cultured. It's being cultivated right
It's
now.
it is it's a part of the system, and we can't keep saying that there are two sides and we just need to like it's, to me, it's literally negotiating with terrorists. There are Christian
Straight up.
nationalist terrorists who have taken over the government, and we damn well know it. And what we know is how it started and how they're funded, and we know all of these things. So nobody has an excuse to be like, I mean, I'm going to read it again. Not rhetoric we would use today. Excuse me? Are there
Yes.
fewer deaths by police? Are there fewer lynchings than there were in 2020? Because those aren't the numbers that I'm seeing. And this idea that you want to distance yourself from the extremity of the rhetoric that all citizens are people with equal rights is antithetical to the authenticity of democratic values that we presumably would need to espouse to actually fight. And so this is why I am committed to running my mouth, because
Yeah.
fool me once, I probably will still phone bank, because I won't be able to sleep. But
Right.
fool me twice. I'm like, I'm listening to, how many people have you heard just today alone talk about, AOC's chances for 2028, and you can't articulate on TV why it's okay that Hong said abolish the police and abolish the Senate, which, by the way, if you are a leader and you are going to, represent this caucus, you should at the
Defend it.
very least be able to say, stop talking about how socialism is bad. It's literally the system of government that everybody is using. Get over it. This comes from a very specific trajectory of white supremacist Christian nationalist rhetoric that they've been using to propagandize and manipulate our
Yes.
population and electorate
Yes.
for generations. And
It
then
is
say,
uncanny. Well, when I started listening to Black people, more like Black content, Greg Carr, Michael Harriet, Karen Hunter, the Reed Daniel Favors. When I started listening to more Black content, things started clicking into place, and I was like, well, no shit.
Yeah.
So like you were talking about Taylor Swift and the White House having their thing, and like I say, everything is wrestling to me. You have Donald Trump, the heel, and you have Taylor Swift, the baby face, the hero that's coming in.
Right.
And so what she's doing is she's using another wrestling term, Eric Bischoff. He's the guy that brought out the NWO and WCW days. He wrote a book called Controversy Creates Cash. She cashes in on that every day. Her music is not complicated. It is not that like to me, it's not that overly amazing. She garners fans through controversy and gimmick. and that's the whole of it. So you have this ultimate face and this ultimate, as a matter of fact, Donald Trump wishes that Rosie O'Donnell would have engaged in that kind of nonsense.
Oh, of course.
But he'll take Taylor Swift because they're both making money off it.
And yet, at the end of the day, it would be so simple for her to say, you know, she came out for Kamala, right? Like,
Yep.
okay, great, she endorsed Harris. I think, you know how BTS fans do all the heavy lifting when we need them to. I think we need to sick the Swifties on, first of all, on Taylor, right? Like, you need to, because this is what I'm saying is like what scares me about the politicization of, you know, again, politics as such implies and invokes a conversation where there's a debate, in the sense that, you know, it's just politics, it's just negotiation. We can't keep agreeing to negotiate with people's human rights. We're literally out of rights to negotiate. So there's no, like, we just can't. And I think that this whole whataboutism of, you know, incrementalism and, you know, well, do we really need to, we shouldn't be discussing whether or not you can have an abortion. We should be discussing how to fund, you know, politics would be how to fund healthcare.
Yes.
Via different methodology and different policy initiatives, which is, you know, I mean, really, we've been conned in this country, like, into believing that there are two sides and the two sides are represented by these institutions. No, there, and I think that, you know, what blows my mind about people who, again, should be representing a DSA platform in an ideal world is those are the people who need to be saying, not only is it not that big a deal, but all governments should have a core, right? Like a core functionality. Like, you like streets, government. You like mail, government. You like trains, government. You like computers, you like technological advances. All of these things are like, this should be indisputable. And yet, in this country, the real argument is not just, you know, it's not what does government do and does the government. The real argument is, well, can everyone have rights? Is everyone entitled to government? Is everyone, because really what it is citizenship, right? Like, we started with two types of citizenship and we've never left. And so now they're trying to roll that back, and you see it. But I think that it's like, I want to see these people talk in absolutes. Even Francesca Hong, when asked to defend herself, she didn't say, and I think she should have said, right? She should have said, not, oh, well, I can't defund the police anyway. She should have said, the reason I said defund the police is because I am an abolitionist, which means that I believe in all rights for everybody. And I believe that slavery needs to be ended, full stop, as in, we will rescind the current exercised power of our government and the institution of policing from harming people. And that means that we're not going to give money towards, I have not spent 30 seconds, and I'm most of the way through a basic abolitionist defund the police platform.
Straight up.
Isn't hard. And you know, stand by abolish the Senate. And frankly, stand by getting rid of Thanksgiving, but fucking back it up. Like, say the reason
it's
that
bullshit.
It's like, you can't represent a progressive platform if you're too scared to talk about it because you're going to use a framing that is incorrect. Like, I think that one of the things that is so amazing about El Sayed is that he is really laser sharp on not entertaining falsehoods, right? And you see him say, I'm not gonna talk about whether or not Israel should exist. No, like, that is a false narrative, and you know, and I'm not going, and I don't want an AOC presidency if she can't stand up and say, I agree that defunding the police is a goal, and it has been co-opted by the right to describe something that literally isn't happening, right? I mean,
But that's everything. The Republican Party is a marketing company. Frank Luntz, he's the guy that shaped the way that their words are, and he was
Mhm.
using the method that's used for toothpaste flavors. Do you want it to taste like fruit punch, or do you want it to taste like
Oh my
mint?
God. Right. And but the thing is, if we're using those toothpaste flavors, it's working, right? I mean, it's like,
But it is.
and
It's nonstop commercials and
be-
nonstop pitch men.
because you drag and you drag and you drag, and then you have people saying, well, it's not rhetoric we would use now because we've evolved. Have we evolved? I haven't seen changes in the past 6 years that have, like, I'm not really convinced that living under siege in DC means that we've evolved. It kind of makes me
Hey,
think
yo,
that
you just made me think of that, man. You are local to that. Is
I
it
am local
really?
to that. Yeah.
Is it really like
If you ever need
fenced in, gated
context.
in, police everywhere and stuff?
Wait, I'm sorry. Will you repeat, because I'm messing with
Yes.
my monitors that don't. I gotta say, I have one. I usually it's like the like glasses or something, right? It's like usually you have your one good one, and this is
Yeah.
like today both monitors are like, oh, you want to go
That's
live?
true.
We're not doing that. And sorry. So
No, I get that. But is DC really like got a lot of
yeah.
uniforms and
Oh yeah.
wow.
Oh yeah. It's terrible. I mean, it's like and also um I'm trying to save up my ire for when it matters, but it's really all not. No, I mean, it's like you just see troops walking
Yeah,
down the street,
yeah,
and you're like, don't glare too hard at the pack of armed men in uniform who you're
yeah.
like, um, it's a lot. It's real weird, and frankly, a Lyft driver told me the other day, he was like, but I do think that they have cleaned up some of the trash downtown. And I was like,
By like literally
that's
picking
something
it up.
we should be paying for differently. Like,
Yeah,
it's like,
that's crazy to me.
if you can't throw sandwiches at these guys all day, then, but yeah, it's pretty bad. It's really
Wow.
awful. And all conversations are just like stupid because like
Yes.
there was a shooting on my block a couple weeks ago, and in my building we have these like periodic. Oh my gosh, sorry, my computer's just um like what is. So sorry,
Hey,
I just want to make sure it's
don't
on.
even sweat it. I still hear you clicking.
Okay, cool. Thanks. I'm just like, I'm gonna turn myself off of camera for a second just so I can like mess with it.
Yeah, yeah,
But
hit it.
yeah, so there was a shooting, so people were we have like a little like community coffee thing,
Yeah.
uh, where real informal. We just sit in the lobby, and one of my neighbors is like a tiny woman with a tiny dog, and she's kind of like, she's always like, well, I just don't feel safe, and you know every conversation now has this like whole magnitude, right? Where it's like, okay, well, would you feel safer if we put a camera on the front of the building?
Right.
Well, the camera would use flock, and then MPD can just tune into that. And like the
Yeah.
problem is, MPD actually spent a lot of time over the past several years, for all their faults and for as much as I don't like policing as a system, they spent a lot of time working on like community liaison stuff and making sure that there were, good beat,
Local people, right.
yeah, like beat practices to make communities safer. And I do live on a street where there's a lot of criminal activity, and so it's like okay, fair, like you understand that there's going to be some law enforcement, uh but it's like it's just very it's very dystopian to be in a world where you can't have a conversation about like making sure that your neighbor feels comfortable taking the dog out at night without saying like, yeah, but we don't want ICE to get involved, right? Like, and it's just the microcosm that is DC is
Well,
it's pretty trippy on like a normal year, but
I keep calling ICE the little green men because in my the way I see it, they're using all the same contracts that Israel's using. They are they're trained by the IDF, all their surveillance with
all of that.
Palantir, and they are being trained by the IDF, and they have what was the number? The 18th largest budget of any military on the globe, greater than the Marine Corps, I believe. And so they are, when push comes to shove, they're going to be turned on us as people. And they have all these detention centers right now, to house us. I mean, we are literally about to be mined for labor, mined for our American resources for this military testing ground in the middle of the Middle East.
Yeah. And that's the plan, right? So maybe if you're Taylor Swift, maybe just say, this is bigger than me, right? Like, it's like maybe
be a human being, not somebody that can go out and buy their private island, just like all these other guys are doing and hiring, military in Blackwater.
Yeah, I think it's like it's really it's pretty amazing, like it's pretty crazy to see how bad people are at just holding that line, because I just think that again, culture is where we have that power. And if you're an entertainer, it just occurred to me today, like, I understand that she doesn't want to get death threats and like whatever. Fuck that. Like, it doesn't, it just
hire bodyguard.
How can that matter in the context of everything that is real, that is happening, that is bad? Really? That's what, it's like, if there was ever, just today, I thought for the first time, like, geez, like, even if you're the most idiot milquetoast passive white woman about this shit, how would you not say, if there was a time to stick my neck out, like Jane Fonda's doing it, maybe she has a point.
Sure. I mean, but I mean, you think about Taraji P. Henson was the one that banged out about Project 2025. It didn't come out in the news. Like, we knew about it from, like Rachel Maddow, because people like us were looking for it. But I mean, right now, when I'm watching media, I'm watching, it feels like it's cartoons, like I'm watching, like, we binge watch shows. We just started 90210. By the way, season 1 is the best season because it's a real, it's not full of itself yet. You know what I mean?
Fun, yeah.
But so I binge watch seasons and whole shows and stuff like that. So I'm starting to see, things in a bigger scope. It's all a big production.
Yeah.
I'm like, lately my big bang's been the Midas Touch as a network is growing, and so they're drowning out other people.
Yeah. So will you talk to me about what you're seeing on that? Because I feel like it's, I don't know. I'm fascinated that you're watching it, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like not just their coverage, right? But the fact that you're keeping eyes on what's going on there.
I was actually in a chat earlier today. Jinx Coral or something like that with an E. Anyway, they were like, "Oh, not you again," and I'm just like, they blocked me specifically because I bang on everybody. But the Midas Touch Network is anybody that's already known. They're trying to get a cut of that content, and then they'll bookend it. I write specifically about Katie Fang. She'll put out content, then Ben will do a video with Ben, Katie Fang content, and then Ben. But like, creators like Surrey Crow, for example, I just genuinely just I genuinely just like her content.
Yeah.
And so when I see her put up stuff, I'm like, she's a Midas Touch contributor too. And if I didn't see it on her stuff, I'd never know. Same thing with Aya that I wrote in my piece today.
Yeah.
It's a Hispanic and a Black woman, and they're doing things and they get no coverage. And so that's actually what I wrote about today. The new fresh talent that they're starting to pull in that don't already have a fan base is young and it's white. They're trying to get that millennial caucasity going, the diminishing demographic in the United States, because that's what, and I always say this, Midas Touch follows the same methods that the Trump campaign, that the now Republican, now MAGA uses for their grift, where it's the email bombs, the loyalty pledge, give me money, subscribe here, we're independent. By the way, they are not independent. They are getting money from George Soros in a larger way. Soros is investing in Midas. Same thing with Brian Tyler Cohen. Brian Tyler Cohen has his chorus cohort, which is also tied in with, like Politics Girl, for example, is also Midas. She is in the chorus cohort. David Pakman is involved in that. He's just a not trustworthy dude. I think he's a slime ball. That's why, I wrote a piece on him and I called him a loser. And what's the snitch kid from the show Recess? That's what I made my graphic with him. Because he's just a slimy dude. And so Brian Tyler Cohen is actually more connected to the Democratic Party than we realize, whereas Midas is trying to get that fame access. Chorus was they were trying to invest in content creators to get their Democratic Party message out. Mind you, that's the private club that we've been conned into supporting. But Brian Tyler Cohen was an organization that he started, was hired by the Harris campaign for their media outreach.
Sure.
And they petered out because all they did was the same never Trumper. I don't call them centrists. I call them the never Trumpers who came over to the Democratic Party because they didn't want to be associated with Republicans. Those are who's running the Democratic Party now.
And it's so bad. It's so corrupt, and it blows my mind. Again, it's like just to come full circle. It is so terrifying, but mostly so obnoxious and wrong. It's like just nakedly corrupt and evil to dress up and say, we're the progressives, but only if it's not too no, you can't. That clip you sent me, I'll post it later because I've referenced it so many times, but I'm just I'm so pissed. I'm so flabbergasted. This idea that, and I also heard this, and this is what made me go off today, was that clip that we're talking about now, where they analyze AOC's, disowning of Francesca Hong's views.
And woke.
And woke as a movement, right? That was the second time today. And this is why I was like, too many, too much. What the hell? That I heard a repeat of this same set of talking points that makes me want to punch a Nazi, which is, woke one was really scary. And both times, both different people, even different complexions.
Right.
Both people talking about this were like, it's really scary when people lose their jobs. And, you can't just say, it was terrible when people couldn't just, I'm sorry. The point of culture is that we enforce what a norm is, and we need to develop. And this is the thing, I don't know, maybe daily shame should end with my call to action of if you're having a bad day, call the fucking Democrats. If you're having, who needs to hear this shit? It's not us. It's the people who are saying, well, you shouldn't just, woke one was really scary. How else are we going to counter an unnatural imposition of minority rule by a white supremacist terrorist group, right? They have fully taken over the government. They have taken over all of the institutions of power, and to even pretend that there is an opportunity to save all of this, let alone to have the first woman actually make it into office, my new theory, by the way, is that we just keep electing them and they just won't put them in because we're now 2 for 2. I'm sure we could go 3 for 3 real easy. And the problem is, instead of finding the common ground, which actually is none of us hate immigrants more than Elon Musk hates our autonomy, right?
Yes,
Like,
yes.
that's the common ground, is like, you're already an American. You know that you're an American because you vote. And if you vote, then other people vote. And if you understand that every vote represents one person, then why do you give a crap about what is under somebody else's pants as long as they're not using it to hurt a child?
Yes.
You know, I mean, it's like, these things are so basic, and yet, you know, this framing that now the left is just, because you lose ground every time you defer. Like, everybody knows this, rhetorically speaking, or wrestling wise,
Yes.
as you're saying, right? Like, the whole point is you cannot win if you're adopting a false framework to say bullshit things and regurgitate them from your own perspective.
If the fans don't get behind you, they won't cheer. If the fans don't get behind you, they won't cheer. And she's trying to be a fan to everybody, but she isn't.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I say the same thing. Now, we talked about El Said, and he stands 10 toes down on his platform.
Yeah.
Who do we hear a lot about right now? Who's the hot white guy? Jon Ossoff. He has a lot of clips. He says a lot of right things in the right moment. What's his platform?
Right.
He's just shooting promos and getting asses into the next stadium for the next show.
And what is amazing to me, I think about this because the last company that I was a part of actually had a lot of like, and it was funny because there were all of these people who were like, as an immigrant, I really hate Trump. And then they would like do all of these things that emulated like narcissistic bullying, violent behavior in ways that I was like, oh, okay, well, and yet your rhetorical concept of success seems to be very narrowly defined. And I always thought about how there's this like just amazing hypocrisy in that violence, but also that it like what works is bullying, right? But the way you counter bullying is with culture. And I had a really amazing point that was exactly what I wanted to say, and it like just a little bit slipped my mind, and I'm filibustering myself to try to get it back, because the frustration that I have in seeing that is, it's just like you can't win a fight that's not honest, period, right? But you can't fight what you can't name. And I think that I'm like, there's a really great corporate analogy on this, just about like the success of what you need in a whole. And it's like completely, Nick, why didn't you hear my brilliant thought?
I hear that all the time, and I apologize.
I'm so frustrated. So and once we stop, it'll hang up. But it's just, again, the movement, the idea that like what is right needs to be tempered is just, it's just so dangerous, because it's not just how you lose, it's how you cede all of the power so that you can't draw those lines and stand up and keep the damage from happening. And again, if AOC wants to be a leader of this caucus, and if everybody's all about coalitions, like what we need is people who are not just, like you said, not just making clips and kind of attenuating themselves into a mainstream. We need to push back by saying we're all reinforcing together that this is what is right. and that's the culture part of it, right? Like you have to, like the power that we have is that we are more than they are. But if the people in power won't be responsive to that culture, that's okay, that's bad enough. But if you're then whining about, you can't have progressives not being able to defend, quote, woke. You can't say like, oh, well, that was like a really heated moment in 2020. It's worse now. What in 2020 happened that did anything other than prepare us for right now, right? I mean, it's like, you know, and if these people as leaders can't even own these, again, these are simple connections, right? Like, you know, it's not about, you know, you need to get more Republicans into the tent. It's about establishing through the, oh, thank you. Okay. Thank you for bearing with me.
You found it.
I found it. I was part of the company where what I saw all of the time was that, and this was the part that was so analogous to the Trump administration that I think about it a lot, actually, because I think about this framing. I was at I was like in the C-suite parts of the company where I was seeing how like decisions were actually made, and I saw how unfair some of the things were. But I also saw that the rules were good, right? And it's like, I think that this is something that is such an easy win. And again, millionth plug of the day, if you can hear me, call the Democrats, like, and tell somebody, please, the rules are on the books and they're good rules. Use the rules, right?
Yeah, the Constitution still exists. All these executive orders that Donald Trump is signing mean squat.
They don't, and if you, like, the one mission, the singular mission of non-Republican lawmakers in any capacity right now should be saying, use the rules because we have them, and the rules are for democracy.
Yes.
and just because somebody's, this is, again, I'm like, I can take anything back to corporate structure because like that's just my bread and butter. But truly, right? It's like the DNA of the democracy exists. We all know where the faults were written in, and we've been working on that. But we have a framework for working on that. And you don't just abandon it because a bunch of people are breaking the rules. So when I hear, oh, well, you know, the woke movement, I'm sorry, it's not a movement to enforce human rights. It is a cultural agreement that we don't need TikTok to uphold, right? Like this is basic shit to keep us out of complete authoritarian rule, such that it already is. And the way we market that is not, well, you know, let's not go crazy and say that police should be abolished. Explain instead, we need everybody on board, and the reason that this fits in to where this fit, right? Like the reason that DSA is not disavowing somebody, although maybe it was, you know, like she kind of did, right? Which is like freaking bonkers. Like it's just absolutely unbelievable that you can take these sort of questions, not just lying down, but rolling over to not, you know, to not say, well, she said abolish the police because she cares about having a justice system that does not participate in white supremacist violence against anyone. What, to whom would that not appeal, right? I mean, it's like the common sense argument for what you want and what I want does not need to be dolled up, but the fact that the right has dolled it up, and now we're talking about like, well, what is woke 2 going to look like? I don't know, hopefully human rights. Like, what is wrong with you? Like, hopefully
but think
people should be allowed
about
to
that.
vote, even though we know that's not going to happen.
Think about that, like how you just said that, right? Woke and then woke too. I mean, that's what
This
AOC
is what they're
said. But
saying. Yeah,
but
yeah.
but you think about that, and that's what we're talking about. We're talking about a product, an intellectual
Yes.
concept of a
Yep.
product,
Yep.
which is woke. And what does
Yep.
woke mean? You know, what we are missing, and you were talking about culture, and I have two different thoughts about culture. One is,
Mhm.
why is Taylor Swift not writing songs about the struggle that she recognizes, not saying I support democracy and I don't support fascism? That's one. But for two, you think
I have
about,
an answer.
yeah, but two, you're thinking about, you're talking about AOC.
Yeah.
She has been for over a decade. That's been her culture in the DC, having the handlers, having the aides, having this. And it's like when I
Which,
listen to
by the
people
way, can I just, sorry to interrupt, but like, it's also not that fucking serious. Like, it's not that glamorous. Keep going.
They go there and they don't take what they're doing seriously, because fundraising for the private club, the Democratic Party, is what their job has become. It's no longer about serving constituents. I mean, shit, Mitch McConnell's where, how, what?
Are you suggesting that Mitch
On
McConnell is not serving constituents? I will say, I do know that there are some people, I'm one of those people, like, I want to carve out, there are some people who are taking it seriously, but you know what? The Republicans are taking it more seriously because they're not conceding, they're not like throwing ground to the other side all the time. And that's the part that
but they don't need to,
me,
because their constituency is their lucrative deals.
Yeah.
And it has not, it's their own. I mean, that's what's happened right now.
Right.
Everybody on the Democratic Party has found, and this
It's
actually,
I'm
jumping. This brings me back to Brian Tyler Cohen.
Yeah.
Mark Elias, the Elias Group is the law, not for the DNC, but for all the supporting groups to the DNC.
Yep.
So the carve up that was created for the 1630 fund to give money to Chorus, the dark money part, was carved out by members of the Mark Elias Group. So the Democratic Party knows how to play some dark money games. So where we are right now with Hakeem Jeffries being the AIPAC bundler who bundles and bundles and bundles and redirects all that money, they are not serving a constituency that has anything to do with a vote. They are serving a constituency that has to do with an ATM card that they can pull money out from.
And I understand, right? Like, I get it. I understand that there are, that there is always, there's always like a need to play to the moneyed interests. But Joyanne Reed made the point recently, and I can't get it out of my head because I think it's like, it's really overwhelmingly powerful. She was saying that the problem is, right, if you get everybody excited about an El Sayed and then don't do the work and put in the effort to make sure that that person makes it past the primary, well, then what you have is a bunch of people who aren't going to be, tuned in and engaged in a way that can help keep that person accountable in the first place. And that is a problem if you're trying to, like, oh, I don't know, stop.
I think you dropped in and out a little bit.
On how to get your how to get your progressivism, you have to mean this shit, because what happens when you sell out your entire base is, and I watched that with the Harris cycle, and I was like, this is the scariest thing I've ever seen, because everybody knows damn well what's going to happen next. They published it, and yet everybody's just like, oh, well, let's just play this kind of, game that we always play. You can't do that when the stakes are so high that you need to be real.
And well, I feel that punditry's just become this election interference. I mean, even us
Mhm.
talking right now, you and
Yeah.
I, to citizens, to people of
Yeah.
intellectual thought, we're talking. It is
Mhm.
what it is. We aren't on national TV giving advice to anybody. Like I think about like Morning Joe. How many
Sure.
pieces of shit I learned about who were
Right.
endeared to me because of they whatever,
Yeah.
and now I look at them and I'm like, I hate them, and it's like, but I thought you were great because Joe said, you know what I mean, and
Yeah. Yeah.
it's crazy how we are, and always brings it back to professional wrestling, man, because you're
I
presented with
love
a
this. I
character.
love this angle for reasons you can't imagine. It's like so fun.
But it all comes back to, you know what I, and
Yeah.
I talk about wrestlers that Vince McMahon didn't want. Daniel
Yeah.
Bryan was a guy, CM Punk was a guy, because they're little scrappy dudes like me,
Hmm.
but they ended up connecting with the fans, and that's how they get elected. Hey, a thought just popped into my head as I said
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
um Mamdani and El Sayed, is Mamdani a practicing Muslim?
He is. Yeah.
Okay. What I know about the Muslim faith, never practiced, I just like to read, is, in Christianity, you go and you can make a confessional, you bang out some Hail Marys, you
Uh-huh.
do a rosary here or there, and all is good. You stand before God as yourself in the Muslim faith. That's what Ramadan's about. It's about making yourself so weak that you depend on the network of people around you, and that's
Hmm.
what brings the good, because you're humble. And so standing before yourself as your own responsibility, and I'm questioning, is that maybe what gives these two particular candidates a leg up? Because in their faith, which faith is internal, not
Hmm.
organized religion. I mean, Jesus, there's 10 churches within 10 miles of me right now, and not
Hmm.
a dang one of them practices the same thing, but they'll all talk to God and they'll all
Right.
use the same book. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I to like two thoughts and responses. I actually went to high school ish with a bunch of very devout practicing Muslims, and I will say that I think and I actually really love the religious discourse around Christian nationalism and what's happened to our country, because I've been watching it like up close and personal since 9/11,
Yeah.
when a bunch of I knew all these kids growing up who were homeschooled, and they literally, like, we went to like it was like a public homeschool school, which is
Yeah,
like
I get that.
that.
I get that.
Yeah, it's like it's a choice. And like they're on 9/11, a bunch of like people, like we called them the Fundy families, like the fundamentalist Christians,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
a bunch of the Fundy kids, like, somehow had a flag to pull out of nowhere and like march across our fake stage with our fake like school, and it was just wild. But there was like a really large Muslim community embedded in this community, and I think that, like, one of the things that I hear again and again, and I know it personally as somebody who's known a lot of devout Christians and a lot of devout Muslims, is that there is just a real quick run through, right? Like, as you said, Christianity, I think that the parts of Christianity that you associated with sort of whiteness, if you will, right,
Yeah.
are the parts that have really been monetized and sort of co opted to mainstream with Christian nationalism. But this country, my dad always said when I was growing up, like, he was always like, yeah, religious fundamentalists made this country, right? Like, they came
They got
here
famous
because
for being so tight.
yeah, because they didn't want to assimilate to their own culture of being a little bit less fucking weird. And
Yeah.
so I think that, and I'm saying this to contextualize Islam, because I think that there are two things that I've seen that, especially like post 9/11. I mean, it mattered, like, in my life very directly, because a lot of the kids who I hung out with on a daily basis were like, girls who covered. And so there was a lot of like, like active
Right.
hate crimes
Fine.
against 13
Right.
year olds. It's just like weird shit going on. And and I'm mentioning this because there is such, and if you read what's it called? it's something like America for Americans, but there's another one. There's a book that I'll post it in the notes, you guys. I can cite later, but there's a book where this woman does a really great job of tracing the xenophobic policy evolution of United States policymaking, and how right from the get it has always been heavily racialized and focuses a lot on discriminating against immigrants, and just making bullshit arguments that say that people have all the things that we're hearing now from this administration that we've always heard. The same reason that everyone I know, because really, I mean, post 9/11, like if you went to a mosque, they were tapping you, right?
Yeah.
Like I was just like how it was, and probably still is. And I think that one of the things that it's really easy to overlook as Americans is that you see two things with Islam in American communities, right? One is that there are people who are practicing Islam in the context of culture that comes from another country, right? That so it's I mean, because Islam has so many followers worldwide, right?
Yeah.
Like you really can't even say, and I think this is something that again it just keeps coming up as there are all of these like BS attacks and all of this Islamophobia going on. I see a lot of the same points swirling around. People forget, and I think it's important to remember that the United States is pretty abnormal in the context of the whole world, because we are used to Christian fundamentalism. So we're used to a level of religious oppression and religious fundamentalism, right? Like
Well,
extreme.
I feel like that comes down to a lot of the religious, it's like they talk about how white people have no culture, and a lot of and you coming back to how the original people who came to the United States were like so devout in their prudeness, and so they came over here, and then they met all this native culture, they met all this Hispanic culture, they met all this black culture that came over with them, which was right under their noses.
Right.
Because they didn't take the time to understand the different versions of pidgin that were being used to communicate, and
and because culture and because language was forcibly taken away from people, so that they were subjugated to what is a culture, right? So I think one of the things that like we always need to remember, especially as white Americans, is that we have a really distorted perception of what it means to practice a religion. And I say that because like there are entire countries who identify everybody, right, with the exception of like a handful of people, who are in your class who, it's like, oh, okay, well, I guess there's like that one Christian kid, right? But it's like, there are majority Muslim countries all over the world, and they practice Islam not in the, like they practice, it's like the same, the equivalency would be how people in the United States like don't meaningfully do anything Christian, but then they go to but it doesn't keep them from like celebrating Christmas, right?
Faking the funk going through. Yeah.
And so I'm saying this to say I do think that there is a lot in Islam that ties to cultural practices, right? It's like there are two sides of that coin, right? It's like people who are coming from immigrant backgrounds necessarily have an interculturally broader worldview because they're not, raised in the narrow-minded, like echo chamber of American Christian thought. But then I think the other part of that, and I've heard so many people say it, and I think it's really interesting, is like, you can ask a lot of Americans who will tell you, if they stop and think about it, that they've had more positive experiences with Muslims than they have with Christians, and you think about how there is a cultural difference that comes from religious practice. I think I think that religion is culture, right? I think
Yeah,
spirituality and faith are belief, but I
yeah,
think that religion is, as an institution, is a type of culture, and I think that Islam is way better, right? I mean, it's like, people really hate the idea that, like, you know people who are taking time to, if you like nullify prayer down to its most reductive form,
sure.
that would be like being mindful 5 times a day. Yeah, that's better, right?
Hey, but you
You're
also
gonna
think
be a
about
better
that.
person if you do that, like,
Islam
straight up.
stayed core to where it was born, to where it was practiced, and
Uh-huh.
it branched out. Whereas Christianity spread by hook or crook, and it was mostly by
Well, it
hook
was
and
by
crook.
right.
So
It
so there
was it
it
was
didn't
by it
stay.
didn't spread. It was
This
forced, right?
yeah,
It's
this
colonization.
perverted concept that has
Yeah.
evolved and rewritten and retold. Like Noah. Noah was Gilgamesh long before he was Noah. You know what I mean? But
Hmm.
we'll keep telling the story. There were people before alleged Adam and Eve. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just a whole lot of to bring it back to wrestling. Everything that we learned is kayfabe. Like me right now in 2026,
What is that?
like I
I'm sorry.
say,
What does that mean? I literally don't
oh,
know.
all right. Kayfabe. Kayfabe's carnival talk, and it kind of takes
Oh,
a
okay.
twist on the pig Latin of fake. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So kayfabe. So say two people are working a carnival. They're talking about how to work. You got the strong man who's gonna just
Hmm.
win against the goon, and then you got the guy who's gonna make the sale like he's gonna win, and then all of a sudden lay down on his back. So
Hmm.
these guys are working out the work, and then a mark comes around the corner, and so one of them would say kayfabe and push him.
Right.
Well, they aren't getting along. I don't like you. The famously Bret Hart and Owen Hart had a rivalry. They were brothers from the
Hmm.
Hart family, and they had to travel in different vehicles. They had to fly in different planes
Oh,
just to
wow.
sell the point that when they stood in that ring, these two did not get along.
That's got it.
Kayfabe.
I'm gonna look this up. I am
Hey, but
fascinated by. I knew. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
well, all of this is kayfabe, all of this, and a
Right.
good
Right.
example of that is when Mamdani's standing next to Donald Trump in the office, and
Right.
everybody's like, "Do you want to call him or whatever?" And he's like, "It's okay, you can call me that," because
And
he
and
knows
it's so
it's absurd.
simple. He
Yeah, yeah.
knows. Yeah.
But he
Yeah.
also wait. You think about this, right? Think about this. There was a battle of the billionaires. That's why Donald Trump is in the WWE Hall of Fame. Battle of the billionaires, and it was
I
between
forget that.
it was between Vince McMahon, whose
Hmm.
fighter was Bobby Lashley, and Donald Trump's fighter was Umaga. So the two fighters fought. That's what the big thing was about. But the
Sure.
winner of the match of the two billionaires and their proxy fighters, the loser was going to get his head shaved. Vince McMahon ended up getting his head shaved. But I
Hmm.
was thinking about this. Somebody was asking me about it. Michelle Koha, that's who was asking me about it. And I was like, the battle of the billionaires. So I started telling her about it, and I
Hmm.
realized I was describing the Trump first election campaign as a candidate, where he was the
Oh,
man
yeah.
with no face, the guy who was going to take on the mean Mr.
Yep.
McMahon, the corporate entity, the bad guy, the guy that tilts the scales. And
Yeah.
and as I'm describing this story arc, I realized I was describing his election campaign.
And I think that one of the things that um, is so critical that the left keeps missing out on at an institutional level because of what I call the institutionalists, right? Or the people who are just like, well, this is the way it has to be because the
Well,
DNC.
AOC's kind of
No,
fitting into that now. She's got her.
exactly. Because and look, here's the thing. It's not that I disrespect that she knows how to play the game. It's that she needs to use her knowledge of how to play the game to understand the storytelling she's up against, as do all of us,
Yeah.
because you can say what you will, but that man understands TV, and
Yes.
we're going to win through culture. And how do we get our culture in this country? We get it from TV. And
Yes.
that's why I want to talk about accountability culture. You mentioned, and it's funny because I had actually written this down, and it's like it pisses me off because it is so Taylor Swift of Taylor Swift to do this. Taylor Swift doesn't have time to think about people getting stuck in detention camps. She's monetizing her
Yes.
important transformative journey from a white woman to, or sorry, from a white girl to a white woman. And that's like really resonated. Like it's so, but but I really, 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 really take issue with anybody who has an enormous platform and hasn't taken the time to think about, can I use this for good? Because I understand that she's above consequences, but that means she could save us if she wanted to.
Yeah.
And I think that white women in particular, like women carry culture in ways that I always think about how like Beyonce has a song about this. So
Yeah.
like, but
We refer
when
to Beyonce as Queen Bee in this house.
I would all hail. There's no there are only so many monarchs that we can respect. Um, it's really important to remember that as white people, how we show up in an institution of any kind, that's influence,
Yeah.
right? The institutions were designed to protect us. And so
Yes.
we are safer in those institutions. It is our responsibility to take up the space to change them. And that's my criticism of AOC and everybody who's on the inside who's like, well, I don't know about, what do you mean you don't know why X, what? Everyone knows that Netanyahu's a war criminal. It's not a secret. It's a ruling, right? Like this is
Straight up.
fact. And the fact that
Straight
people are, it's all what I want people to ask. Sorry, I get so angry that I'm like, blah.
Hit it.
I want people to ask every single day in every time anyone hears any of this rhetoric, I want us to ask ourselves, and I wish more folks who are, platformed would be talking about this. Who does it serve? Because culture is something that as white people, we take for granted because we think we don't have culture, but that's not true. White supremacy is culture. It's bad culture, but we intentionally we were talking about how this country got started. Well, it got started by imposing a set of cultural values that we have been told are immutably objective and therefore not cultural, right? We think of cultural as ethnicity and therefore ethnic.
Yes.
White culture is just oppression. Like it's just violence, guys. So sorry?
And obedience.
Oh no, exactly, because it's subjugation, right? And it's like, what people don't think about is that our passive participation in white supremacist culture, or what white people like Taylor Swift are thinking, is not culture. And that to me is what's so obnoxious about her is you don't get to stick your toe in the water in a do or die once in a lifetime moment. If you can acknowledge that there's water, you better jump because otherwise what's the fucking point? And yet I think that I'm really interested in the idea of how to compel white women in particular, but white people at large, to define our culture, right? Because the way we're going to win this is to unite people under small d democracy things that, again, they're good, they're on the books, we have the systems in place. All we have to do is say, I'm sorry, trans Americans are Americans. Next question. I'm sorry, abolish the police is a really valid thing to say in the context of a carceral system that we all know is being weaponized against even people who aren't black. And it's just, it's just
the whole police force started as slave catching, like that.
But the number of Americans who don't know that is like, and this is what I'm saying. I know AOC knows that, or I hope she fucking does.
She knows it in front of the right crowd.
Say that in front of the crowd. The reason people are saying this is not because it's just some fringe thing. It's because the institution is bad and people want to rebuild it. And I respect that because, again, 3 degrees max. 1, we're all Americans. 2, democracy is aspirational, so we should go get it. And 3, that's not wild and it's not political, right?
No.
Like I just don't think that people are as good at I am as framing these really simple things that I would like. Like
Well,
I want it to be better right now.
you know,
What the
you
fuck?
saying that, and I was thinking that, and we I was talking about intellectuals, and you were talking about
Yeah.
Taylor Swift. One of my big gripes in our new media space outside of the
Hmm.
network people that have made
Yeah.
their way into be funded by corporate money, but like
Hmm.
Jennifer Welch is somebody that really let me down the most. And do I love watching her content?
Oh,
Sure,
I
but
wanna hear this so bad.
good.
Yeah.
I wrote a small, quick, just need to get it out of my head. Jennifer
Hmm.
Welch for president because she's saying all the right things. She's a white
Yep.
woman. She goes out and she has an established intellectual intellectual constituency.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah. Yeah.
we all follow her. And why? Because it was silly at first, it was seething, but then she's saying this highly
Because
political
she's
shit.
coming from the right place and she's
What
giving a perspective that's
she
important for
said
people to
straight up,
hear.
she does not want to run for president. She just wants to sit in front of a microphone and talk shit because
Hmm.
that's lucrative to her. But what I'm saying is she needs to use that platform
Right.
to build. Instead,
Yeah.
she's just
Yeah.
writing books and
Yeah.
monetizing clip
Yeah.
shows, same as Midas,
Because
same as Brian.
celebrity's more fun.
It pisses me off because Danielle Moody's another one. Danielle Moody has an intellectual constituency. She could run on that. You know what I mean?
I think that I hope we're gonna see um changes on what constituency looks like and what consulting or whatever looks like,
Yeah.
where some of these like, opinion makers come from. I think
Like
that
the
what's really
whole
hard,
bulwark needs to be flushed down the toilet. Every
I,
fucking one of them,
it's
especially Sarah Longwell. Turd.
it's just that, like, oh my god, I can't even. I you know I have something to say about Jen Welsh in a second, but I also feel like it's important that people organize, period. And I think,
Yes,
I respect that Jen Welsh has done a good job of the platform she uses. And
absolutely.
I
So
I I do think that the culture that she enacts, like, I support what she's doing. I agree she could be more proactive about making sure that people get out and do what needs to be done. And I think that that's a way that she should and could leverage her platform better. I
yes,
also think it is important to have any platform, even, we have 20,000 people watching right now, and I think that's really great. But I think that, like, any voice, every voice that is participating in culture such that it is, discussing these narratives is important. I love that she illustrates the hypocrisy, and I also think that the way she talks about the abuse of religious communities
oh
is
my
really, really
hey, you
valuable.
watch Jenny Gage?
Sorry, what about her?
Jenny Gage, Life Take Two on YouTube.
Okay.
She was a Utah
I don't
Mormon.
know her. Yeah.
She was white nationalist. She
Okay,
was
yeah.
a bad wife. She was all that stuff. I crack out on her. Actually, I don't even really crack out anymore because by now I have binged so much.
Because you've memorized it and you're like, okay, I know your
Tapped in
10
a little
points.
bit
Yeah.
to find out the new stuff.
Hmm.
But listening to her talk about that life, it's like I live in the United States and that's that culture. It's
Yep.
amazing.
Yep.
But that also, like I say, I listen to a lot of black media where it's like we have diverse cultures. Well, I think about it. You're in the DMV area. So when I'm talking about capital P patriots, not
Mhm.
2026 patriots, but actual patriots, you have them buried around properties where you live, just like I have them around properties where I live.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
don't have that over in Arizona. They have a different culture there.
Right.
They have a
Right.
different, like when I got to California, one of the things that would shock me because I'm used to American culture is how
Mhm.
much Mexican culture I had
Right.
to learn by
Yep.
like I when I moved to California, I spent a year, I was in the Marine Corps. I had spent a year in Japan. Moving
Mhm.
from Japan to California, California was so much weirder than Japan because I
Yeah.
already had my mind made up about what California was. You know what
Yep.
I mean?
Oh, yeah.
But we don't have me and Dana Dubois, what she lives out kind of like in like Seattle area and stuff like that.
That's what I'm from there. Yeah.
Well, you're from there. Like
Mhm.
as far as land, we're in the same space, but it's not
Yep.
the same culture. You know what I mean?
and yet the themes are universal, right? I mean, and that's the part that just like blows my mind is like there is so much that is special and diverse about each state and each region, and also the things that are bad are really 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 common denominators because they're coming from the feds. And they're, you know, it's like because the problem is the system's been
Hijack.
really, yeah, right. And I'm like, I don't want to say hijack because I'm like, on the one hand, it's being used mostly how it was intended to be used, but that's why it needs to be changed. Because by the way, there's only more Trump after this, right? Like there's not just a quick turn where everyone's like, oh, good, let's get
No,
Biden back in
no,
there, and I
no.
just I you know it, I think that what I was going to say about Jen Welsh is she, and I've been, this is one of those things where I'm like, can someone, if anyone knows Jen Welsh, can you just like tell her, please? I just think that, just a note, it's so interesting because like I'm an atheist. I grew up around a lot of religious people, and I grew up going to like Unitarian church, but that like preserved my Jewish cultural religiosity, which is culture, and
It,
my humanist atheist views. So
yeah,
not
yeah,
not an issue. But it's interesting because she always talks about, like, she always references how she just thinks it's Iron Age thinking, and then she explains, like, it, you know, she comes from the Bible Belt, and that's her context. And she was talking to Mehdi Hassan, and she said, you know, like, basically he was like, well, you know, like, do you think that I'm like not educated, you know, because I'm Muslim? And it was interesting because it was clear that she was struggling to leave her hard line of, I don't participate in the mythological stories that
yeah.
comprise theistic belief. And I think that what was so interesting about that to me is it struck me as very American in a specific context, because to the points that we were discussing earlier, right? Like when you think about how the whole world is Muslim, that's just a culture, right? Like it's a cultural practice. It doesn't mean that you, like, you know, send your kids off with an imam who is going to,
Brainwashing.
like, right, it's not the same thing. And it struck me that I was like, you're actually showing how narrow-minded your worldview and experience are by not being able to understand that culture and religion, or education and religion, can coexist in these ways, that because of Christian nationalism
Right.
and this really, really scary stuff that we have going on in the US, she can't even recognize it, right? Like, she's literally like, but you believe in God, so that's, and you can get into why, like, I
Sure.
understand the atheist arguments about, like, you know, why I do believe that there's a lot to be said for how you can't let dogma be such a big part of religious or cultural identity that you fall into the subjugation traps of
Yeah.
the violence of white supremacy and patriarchy, because those things are bad.
Yes.
But if you flip them, you can find that there are a lot of people who are living cultural values that are good and
Right.
have faith that is individual, and none of those things are bad. But most importantly, 95% of the time, meaning everywhere else but here, those things are not funneled, like, into bank accounts that are made to disenfranchise and manipulate people. So it's really important to separate these strands, because again, like, white people don't think about what culture is, but that's because we are culture. So we need to show up in ways that change it. Sorry, go
If
ahead.
if we if we tax the church, politics leaves religion. Full stop.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
but you talk about culture. Gen X dude here. I was born in 77. I'm as old as Elvis is dead. I'm as old as hip hop gets credit for. I'm as old
Uh-huh.
as Donald Trump is a Russian asset. And
Uh-huh.
so 1977 is my years. I'm as old as Star Wars. And
Mm-hmm.
so while I'm doing all that stuff, I'm watching TV. When you're talking to people up around my age, how do we communicate? With movie clips. You know what I'm saying? I was talking with
Mm-hmm.
somebody about Ace Ventura and we were banging back, let me ask you a question. You know,
Right,
that
right.
and Billy Madison and I go back to reruns where I'll say Dobie Gillis. You know what I mean? I'm a Maynard G. Krebs fan myself. And, you know, pop culture and media is our blanket culture. Whatever was going around in your hometown, we all had that Leave It to Beaver. We all had that Head of the Class episode where they went to Russia. We all had that Mr. Cotter reruns. We all had reruns of the Cosby Show. I was a fat
Mm-hmm.
Albert guy growing up, so I watched a lot of
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
We all had the reruns of Star Trek. We all had the reruns of Voltron. We all
Right.
watched rock and wrestling come together in 86 and 87 at the
Mm-hmm.
same time. So many of the dynamics, when 3 to 5 movies came out that summer, you
Right.
saw all of the movies that summer because that's just what there was to do. Whereas
Sure.
now everything is available, everything is independent. Like even us right now, we're talking about stuff that takes place in the news and the globe in Washington, D.C. And here I am in a small city in upstate New York. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying?
Where
And
they keep the cows, as someone once told me.
we got the cows. As a matter of fact, some days I open my window, and if I don't smell the paper mill that's 3 miles away that I work at, I
Yep.
smell farms that are 3 miles the other way. You know what I mean?
Right, right. Yeah.
But that comes back to everything being local. I wrote a piece, and there's Hudson Falls where I live, there's Glens
Mm-hmm.
Falls, and then there's Queensbury just past it. Glens Falls was the origin of our area starting. Like literally,
Mm-hmm.
Abraham Wing got the lots from the King of England before this was America.
Yeah.
We were still colonies then, and so over here where I am in Hudson Falls, that became kind of like the mill town where they would put all their pollutants in the water, but use the water to make their whatevers. And then they put in the throughway, and now all of our money doesn't exist. All the places left.
Yeah.
All the people from the throughway brought their businesses there because you can just get off the exit and shop,
Mm-hmm.
shop, shop. So my kids that go to school in Queensbury, they go to like the campus keeps expanding. It's
Yeah.
larger than our community college because of how
Mm.
much business is there in Queensbury, but
Yeah.
all the money goes there. All the people come here and can't afford to live here because all the money goes there because of commercial sales.
Yeah. I think the thing that we forget about culture, just to bring all of that back, right, and draw it into, I'm so fucking sick of people talking about, we need to be a big tent and whatever, whatever, and no one will talk about what makes that
Yeah,
umbrella, right?
yeah.
No one will
Get
talk
to
about
know
what
your
makes
neighbor.
that.
That's the beginning of a big tent.
And it's also, it's just like, people are not taught to think critically about how all culture is literally antithetical to white supremacy. So
Oh,
anything you like is actually, like, all things that are good that are like they were developed in response to or outside of the American government as an institution. And I
yeah.
think that when we are talking about, what it, like, my big thing is, I want people to go full Karen, right? Like, I want white women to show up and be, because, like,
Yeah.
if you really think about, like, what pulls off a movement, one, oh my God, and we talked about this earlier, I don't think woke two is real, like, the idea that, it just drives me crazy. There's this idea that,
Like they're bringing out new
people,
Pepsi.
oh, but it's just like there's this concept that, like, it's somehow a movement that people want rights. This isn't new. This is as old as anything that has happened. And until we have these conversations in real and meaningful ways, this is why I want to talk about accountability as, a cultural value. I think, if we define as white people in white-skinned bodies,
Yes.
our identities around being accountable or leveraging, when I say full Karen, what I mean is everyone has skills. And as white women, our skills are like, they include being bitchy. Be bitchy, right? Like my main criticism of Jen Welsh is like, I want everybody who has a real platform to have a way to, like, a call to action in every fucking thing they publish, because what matters is that we're all leveraging our skills and we're working together, and it's going to take everybody working together all of the time to get over this. And what that means is looking individually and collectively at, like, what can I do? If I were Taylor Swift, I would say, maybe I could write a song about something other than my husband's dick. Like, maybe that could change things.
Trivial shit.
I mean, really, she could do anything, right?
Yeah.
I mean, she could just say, hey, I don't like fascism. And it would, like, the ripples all around the world. And that's just too much, because white supremacy teaches us that docility is a virtue, and especially that white women need to fall in line. She's already having a fight with the fascists. Why not stand up while you're, I mean, it's just like something. AOC, they're already going to call you a communist. Explain why socialism is actually how our government has always worked. I mean, this shit is so simple and people won't do it, and it's because they don't see themselves as having that agency. But again, all white women I know how to figure out who didn't give their kid the right grade on the test. So why can't they figure out how to call a senator, right? I mean, it's just like, these are basic things. And if Jen is going to shame people all day, I want to hear that she's shaming people into weaponizing the power that we do have, leveraging it in ways that is productive. Because talking about how, I'm now back to AOC because, oh my God, talking about how, like, we just wouldn't use that rhetoric right now. There is not a less extreme iteration of what they're saying. I also think and I will, like, start to let you go because I could talk about this shit all night, but, like, the ridiculousness of toning down the rhetoric on equality is so insulting that it's like a promise to not make progress. And what really stuck with me was that everybody was just so, and in DC, let me tell you, I have a whole different perspective on this than a lot of people do, especially right now. What stuck with everyone was, well, people shouldn't just get bullied for being racist and lose their jobs. Yes, they should. Like, these rules are on the book, because watch this. Racism is a compromise of someone's human rights. In a democracy, all human rights are equal. You're not doing democracy if you're being racist because you can't infringe upon somebody else's human rights. That diminishes and threatens their equality. Not hard.
Hey, you just made me think of something. They keep taking all the specific language out of things. Hey, we're post-racial. We don't need to say black or white. We don't. But what they're doing in doing that is they're applying the catch-22 of men's rape.
And who does it serve?
Well,
every time. Who does it serve?
They do in Jim Crow? They had none of that racial identification, so they couldn't be racist. This is just a human being. They couldn't say that this man lost his bank paperwork because he was black, because you can't prove it. And that's what they're doing right now, is they're taking all that specifics out so that they can put that implied Mike Johnson's type of language into it.
And I think this is why it's so important to have conversations with other white people, because I think that it's that type of, what you just said, right? It's just a human being. Well, and I know, and thinking educated people know that the default setting for human being in this country is white male. And so
25.
What we're told what we're told is that it's just, even the language you just used, right, is a perfect synopsis of, oh, it's just a human being. That takes all of the characterization away, and that's how we as white people are taught to think about culture. It doesn't exist. It
Yes.
doesn't exist. I can't do culture. I don't have culture. I'm just white. And it's
Yeah.
like that docility
Sure.
is subjugation to the systems that are violent. And what we need to do to reverse them is participate in culture
Yes.
and
Exist.
own it.
Exist. Be open. Be honest. Exist. Don't
But be
don't
proactive,
don't
right? Like be
appropriate.
like
Just be from where you are and express the culture as you pick. Me, I'm a wild guy. Like around here, I'm a weirdo. But like I've lived on 5 of the freaking continents. You know what I'm saying?
right. Yeah, yeah.
Around different people, different cultures. I watch diverse culture and all that stuff. I watch it. I watch an in class with Carr, which is 2 hours, and by the
Mhm.
end of the episode, I'm speaking like him. If I watch an episode of Touré, by the end, I'm kind of got his cadence too. I kind of pick up what I get.
That's so fun. I'm like, you and I definitely have similar types of ADHD because you say some things about words sometimes where I'm like, yeah, I know what you mean. I'm like, oh, and you just start hearing people think in that
Yeah,
voice. I get it. Yep.
yeah, definitely.
Thank you so very much for doing a daily shame with me. This
This
was
was
so
fun.
lovely. I can't believe it was already an hour 40. I'm not gonna edit unless you want me to. So
Bye. Shit.
thank you to our audience of 20,000. I hope that if you asked questions that I didn't miss them because I'll try to answer them tomorrow if you did. And also, yeah, everyone just be accountable. I really want to I just want to popularize at least the idea that accountability is cool. AOC, because we need people saying like, I'm being honest, I'm being direct, I'm advertising a basic message, and that doesn't require me to kowtow to fascists. But it does require us to talk to strangers. Like that's what I want.
Yeah,
Like go full Karen, talk to strangers. These are the
yeah.
like this
Be in their space.
exact. Well, be in your space and be in your space in a way. I I I'm trying to find as many ways as I can to communicate conceptually the idea that like if you can do a microaggression, which you as an aggressor, as a white person, you experience it as micro because it's only a little bit of racism. If you can do a tiny violence, you could do a tiny good, right? So like think about the influence and the power that of the space we occupy because that's it. We are culture. Not Taylor Swift though. She's not good. Jesus Christ.
Nah, she like I say, she grew up. That's Mid South wrestling. She Jerry Jarrett was the guy. Jeff
Oh,
so
that's
Jerry
right.
Jarrett
You said yeah, yeah.
Jerry Jarrett was the territory guy. Jeff Jarrett was the son. He wrestled in TNA. He wrestled in WCW. He wrestled in WWF, then WWE. I am the chosen one. His gimmick was he was a country music star from Memphis. You know what I mean? He had
Mm-hmm.
this guy. The Road Dogg was his partner. Jeff Jarrett couldn't sing. Road Dogg could sing. Sang his theme music. Anyway, Jeff Jarrett's kids were babysat by Taylor Swift when she
So
was a
funny.
youngin in the Memphis area and stuff
Oh,
like
and
that.
is that how she got into the scene?
I don't know. I just know that's why she's wrestling
So
Royal to
okay. I was like, is that why she started country? Oh, okay. All right. Just curious.
Hey, well, think about that. They get in with what they get in with, and then they create what makes them money.
Of course. And I think, my friend and I were talking about this morning, how because he was like, oh, her evolution is so boring. And I was like, yeah, because really it was I'm a white girl to I'm a
Yeah,
white woman. And
yeah,
it's like, yeah, it's not,
yeah.
but I don't know. I'm not gonna enrage the Swifties. I want to engage the Swifties. I want
That's it.
Swifties
Never stop
because
talking.
like I said at the top of the million hours, um, like BTS gets shit done, right? Like why can't the Swifties? I want Swifties for democracy. That's my that's my ask of the day.
Yes, me too.
All right. Um, A pleasure as always. I'm sure we'll talk again soon. Thanks everyone for being with us. Have a good night. Bye.
Bye.